It's Wednesday, November 26th, as we look outside this morning in America, courtesy of EarthCam. Let's check out Chicago, Illinois, the Statue of Liberty, Houston, Texas, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nick Smith in for Marky Martin. This Wednesday, we have a whole lot of good news to get to, but we want to update you with the stories of the day. So let's get started. President Donald Trump revealing new details about a plan to end Russia's war in Ukraine, what a revised peace agreement now looks like, and when U.S. officials could meet with Russia's Vladimir Putin. NewsNation takes you shopping across the country to see how much your Thanksgiving meal costs from coast to coast. And is beer made from recycled shower water on your dinner menu? Ooh, brew. I'm going to talk to the man who says it's delicious, and it should be. But first, the war in Ukraine is far from over, but President Trump says his team is fine-tuning the plan that will bring it to an end. As the president's team prepares to hammer out details with Russia and Ukrainian leaders in the next week, President Trump says he's open to meeting with both Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, but only when a deal is nearly done. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey is live at the White House with the latest. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Nick, good morning from the White House. That Thursday deadline set by President Donald Trump to reach a peace deal appears to be pushed back right now. But aboard Air Force One, President Trump voiced progress to NewsNation about where talks stand at the moment. Take a listen.
We're having good talks. We started with Russia, having some talks with Russia. Ukraine is doing well. I think they're pretty happy about it. People are starting to realize it's a good deal for both parties. If they got to stop the war, they're losing a lot of people.
And for our viewers at home, two people to keep in mind right now, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. The president saying he has directed Witkoff to meet with Vladimir Putin next week and Driscoll to meet with a Ukrainian team, which says that meeting could come later this week. In a Truth Social post, the president saying the original 28-point peace plan only has a few remaining points of disagreement, which NewsNation asked the president directly about aboard Air Force One.
Well, they're talking about going land both ways and trying to clean up the border.
Specific details of what peace plan could emerge still remain unknown, but on Tuesday, we know Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky, met with leaders from 35 other countries as part of a coalition of the willing. The group discussed the ongoing negotiations as well as support for Ukraine. Nick, one important thing to mention is going to be the reactions from Russia with all this. No doubt, Russian leaders like Vladimir Putin will be pushing for that original 28-point plan, which some lawmakers here in the U.S. criticize as being too friendly towards Russia. Nick?
Rom, have any of these talks, Tom, had any effect on the battlefield?
Yeah, so here's the thing. There's obviously a lot of focus on these negotiations and plans to bring a peace deal, but this actual war is continuing to be fought literally at this minute overseas in Europe. Just this week, Russia fired over 20 missiles and launched over 450 drones at Ukraine's capital, hitting city buildings and energy facilities and killing at least 7 people. Ukraine also fired back, launching hundreds of drones towards southern Russia, damaging homes and killing at least 3 people while targeting an aviation plant and drone facility. One lawmaker in Russia describing that Ukrainian drone attack as one of the largest since the war began almost 4 years ago. Nick?
Tom Dempsey with the latest from the White House. Tom, thank you so much. Joining me now is Captain Brent Sadler, retired U.S. military diplomat with extensive experience across Asia. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Nick.
There's so much we want to cover here because the peace deal or the talks look as though they're moving in the right direction, and that's reason to be hopeful.
No, absolutely. It is hopeful. Certainly, if you look at the battlefield, it might cause you to pause because, as already mentioned, there's been a significant posturing and launching of missile strikes both ways. I think that's to be expected, certainly as we get to the final mile or the final details of this proposed ceasefire. And until it's announced, we won't really know exactly what the give and take is. Right now, it's over with the Russians, and we can probably imagine what they're going to push back on.
Captain Sadler, President Trump spoke to reporters on Air Force One on getting Russia on board with this deal. Here are his plans.
They're going to keep talking. They're talking to Russia now. Steve Whitcomb is going over, maybe with Jared. I'm not sure about Jared going, but he's involved in the process, smart guy, and they're going to be meeting with President Putin, I believe, next week in Moscow.
You talked about how Jared is definitely part of this plan to talk and get the deal in place. Do you see a real risk that this plan could fail entirely? And what would that mean for the military situation on the ground?
Well, I mean, the possibility that Putin pushes back and scuppers the entire deal is definitely a distinct possibility. But again, both sides are reaching a point at which they can't keep fighting, or at least the costs start to go up. And I think for the Ukrainian, that's a lot sharper and a lot more soon than it is for the Russians. But there's just a lot of details. I think it's also to point to the Secretary of the Army going and getting engaged, because what's really important is wherever the fighting stops, that front line needs to be one that if either side decides to restart hostilities, that the risks are too high. And so you need someone with operational experience looking and judging where that line goes.
And even as these discussions continue, Captain, Russia continues to launch missiles against Kyiv, even amid these talks. Does it signal Moscow is serious about peace, or are they just buying time?
Well, I think it could actually be the other as well. Both sides trying to make a very forceful stand to signal that they have a lot of fight left, and that concessions need to be given to their side in order for them to put down their weapons. But Kyiv did the same thing, as mentioned, launching perhaps the largest drone assault on Russia since the war started. And I think the audience is really the mediator, which is us, the United States, to try to show that more should be given as a concession to either side. The reality is, both sides are reaching a point where it's in their best interest to hit a pause.
And it seems as though Ukraine is cautious about this plan. How much leverage does Ukraine really have if territorial concessions remain out of the question for them?
Sadly, there's just no possibility when you look at just pure military. It's not a judgment of if it's the right moral thing or the right thing in the long term. And there's lots of options to kind of address, how do you recognize or never recognize what the boundaries are right now to stop the fighting? Crimea, that is really a very challenging military operational task to try to retake by force, let alone what the Ukrainians have in their arsenal, just manpower, to fight against the Russians in Donbass. So there is a realistic aspect to this whole thing. But again, whatever that boundary is, whatever the concessions from both sides, it has to be with the idea of a enduring, lasting peace. And the only way that happens is if both sides are positioned in such a way that the risk militarily to either side is so much greater to restart the war.
Captain Sadler, thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Millions of Americans from coast to coast are in the thick of a busy Thanksgiving travel season. Right now, you're looking live at LAX and Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta. Storms in the forecast threaten to put a damper on nationwide travel, which is expected to reach record levels this week. We have live team coverage on the holiday travel rush and the forecast. NewsNation's Ryan Bass kicks us off at Tampa International Airport with the latest. Ryan, good morning.
Well, Nick, cheers. Good morning to you. Got my coffee ready, which a lot of travelers I see picking up theirs as well. It's expected to be really busy. Phoebe the Flamingo here in Tampa, going to have a lot of friends coming by to see her this week over this holiday stretch. TPA expecting 1 million travelers throughout this Thanksgiving week. And Sunday is expected to be the busiest day, much like many airports across the country. Now, Florida is a very, very hot spot this Thanksgiving holiday weekend. 4 of the top 5 most booked destinations, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Tampa, all here in the Sunshine State. And it comes during what's expected to be the busiest Turkey Day travel week in 15 years. AAA says about 82 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles. That is the most ever. Roughly 6 million are flying, a small uptick from last year. But nearly 90% of travelers are driving, meaning about 73 million people will be on the roads. Now, for our friends and family that are hopping in the car to see family and friends, they're going to be seeing some relief at the gas pump, which is certainly some good news for a lot of those folks that are going to be on our roadways. Gas prices are near a 4-year low. The national average around $3.04, and more than half the country now under that $3 mark as you take a look at these gas prices on your screen. Gas Buddy's Matt McLean says simple car maintenance can help stretch your tank go a little bit further.
Best thing that you can do when it comes to fuel efficiency, make sure that everything is all taken care of with your vehicle. Treat it like you would basically treat your body, trying to get it into good shape.
AAA says they had 600 roadside assistance claims last year during the Thanksgiving holiday. So again, you don't want to be backed up with that. For travelers that are flying, though, a couple of things to remember. TSA security changes are now live nationwide, including digital IDs that are on your Apple or Android phone. So that's certainly good. And with real ID required, you got to make sure you have that new license, or you could face additional screening as well. But at least, Nick, you get to keep your shoes on this year when you go through security lines. That is new, and that's certainly going to be good because travelers across the country could be dealing with some weather delays. Hopefully that helps the headaches a little bit more.
And it should move things a little bit faster, too. Ryan, thank you so much. With me now is NewsNation meteorologist Max Saperis, who has been following this weather. Max, good morning.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, powerful storm system cutting through the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region. And we've actually seen winter storm warnings upgraded to blizzard warnings in parts of the northern Michigan region, northern Wisconsin, as well, just showing how strong this is. As impactful to travel is going to be the gusty winds, 50 to 60 mile per hour with high wind alerts in place for the rest of today. So let's look at future radar. Here's that low pressure storm system cutting through the Great Lakes region, heavy snow farther to the north, and then into Thursday and even Friday's forecast, we're going to see these lake effect snow streamers downwind of the Great Lakes. So the south and east side of the lake seeing the biggest totals here. High winds continuing into tomorrow's forecast, moving into the mid-Atlantic, so something we've got to be on the lookout for into the next 12 to 36 hours. Winds will peak around midday. So here's 1 o'clock snapshot here showing gusts up to 50 miles per hour, possibly as high as 60 mile per hour winds on the west side of lower Michigan. Then the winds will be a factor tomorrow across much of the northeast, gusting as high as 25 to 35 miles per hour as we wake up Thanksgiving morning. That could threaten the Thanksgiving Macy's Day Parade balloons from possibly going up. Time will tell if they're able to have that happen, but certainly the winds will be a factor. Snow totals significant, up to 3 feet possible in parts of the UP of Michigan, 10 to 20 inches as we look downstream into western New York, 4 to 8 inches into western Michigan. Let's get to those airport delays. Biggest delays are certainly going to be in the Twin Cities, out towards Chicago because of the high winds, and then residual delays across the eastern seaboard after yesterday's round of rain and storms passed by. But again, biggest impacts today, Nick, is going to be across the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region with that powerful storm system tearing through. High snow totals, high winds going to be a factor out there.
We'll keep an eye on it all. Max, thank you so much. Now to more headlines we're following closely this morning. Take a listen.
I'd rather not extend them at all.
Will you do it?
And maybe some kind of an extension may be necessary to get something else done, because the Unaffordable Care Act has been a disaster.
You heard it right there for yourself from the man himself. President Trump says he'd prefer not to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies except in order to negotiate a new health care plan. Those Obamacare subsidies are set to run out at the end of the year, and Democrats demanded an extension during the government shutdown. The baby formula company involved in a nationwide recall over botulism says all of its products may be contaminated. Byheart posted on its website that tests found dangerous bacteria in 3 different lots, and they can't rule out the risk that it's not in others. At least 31 babies in 15 states have been sickened by the rare and sometimes deadly illness since the outbreak began back in August. 4 family members are miraculously back on dry land after clinging onto a capsized boat for more than 20 hours. The Coast Guard finding the 4 men, ranging in ages between 18 and 90 years old, miles off the coast of Miami. The boaters told the Coast Guard their boat began taking on water Monday afternoon, and their family reported them missing hours later. They were taken to the hospital once they returned to shore. The FBI asking to meet with the Democrats who put out a campaign encouraging the military to defy orders from the Trump administration that they say are illegal. What this could mean for them and how they are reacting. Plus, one of America's iconic brands finds itself in a stew of controversy and facing legal problems. The shocking comments from a top Campbell's soup exec on everything from bioengineered meat to low-income customers. And it was all recorded on audio.